got it in a big thing. They never have it in a...
Alan, you're trying to cut out sugar altogether. You're trying on a high protein diet. High protein diet now.
Who is?
Alison and me. Low carbohydrate and sugars.
Oh.
It's not going very well, thanks.
Well, there's a new thing now that you're supposed to eat lots of fat.
Yeah, butter and...
But I don't eat much sugar. I don't eat much meat either.
Are you happy for your game?
Yeah.
Good.
There was some of the Cambridge people who did computers. Wilkins.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You probably expect their names are in some sort of historical.
Yeah.
I'll have a look and see if there's an adding machine in there now. Is this tea like as you like it?
Yeah.
I don't drink much tea, you see, so I can't judge.
Do you drink coffee then or not?
Coffee mostly, yeah. Only instant, mind, half the time. So I like my tea sort of weakish.
Has Thomas William been down recently?
I haven't seen him this, a couple of weeks ago. It was his birthday.
Oh yeah, wasn't it?
Didn't happen this year, but last year, on my calendar out there, when I changed it over to September, there was a little note in Thomas's writing on the 22nd, Thomas's birthday.
He's a boy, isn't he? In his handwriting or Phil's
No,
handwriting?
his.
His.
Not that he's like, not homemade.
They're lovely. Where did they come from then?
Hmm?
Where did the Welsh cakes come from?
Chapel.
Chapel life.
Chapel sale.
Is that one of the things that is suffering because of a modern day society with technology?
No, well, I imagine so. I mean, yeah, I don't see. There's only one chapel left in Antamore now, Baptist. I tell you one thing that makes me feel absolutely ancient. I was thinking of this, somebody said something like, oh, I met somebody who was from Antamore. When I was in infant school, now this would be, when I was 4, if I said 1929, 1930, something like that. I can remember so well, one of the teachers came in and said, come out, all the children, come out as soon as you can into the playground, which was a concrete thing. There's something to see. So we all trooped out quickly, and it was an aeroplane. So it was that rare. It depended where you lived, really.
And I take it the aeroplane was in the air, not in the yard. Just when
Flying over. And we all ever so excited. Ooh. Probably the first one we'd ever seen. So there's a lot of difference in those days. I think this is the main difference, actually. Because where you live now, everybody's got the same access to everything, haven't they? In my young day, if you lived in a place in Antamore or Ogmavale, you didn't see aeroplanes. And you didn't have telephones. And there'd only be one car. But these days, everybody's on a level, aren't they?
I can imagine how amazing it must have been seeing a massive sort of metal machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd heard about aeroplanes.
It must have been hard to understand how it.
Yeah.
Just,
I don't think my father ever really, he'd been in one, but I don't think he ever knew that, understood why it could fly.
have you ever been in an aeroplane?
Hmm?
Have you ever been in an aeroplane?
Me, yeah. Yeah, I used to commute to Lausanne.
Are you glad you grew up in the period you did then, compared to what youngsters experience these days?
Oh, it's quite different.
Mm.
Quite different. Oh, all sorts of. Well, I mean, it was in the Depression.
How tough was life then?
No, not bad. I mean, we didn't starve. But I think a lot of parents went without a few meals now and again.
We're doing that in history now.
And people grew things. Everybody had grew veggies or.
We're doing the Great Depression in Wales and England. It's for our exams. So
And what years?
In the 30s.
Yeah, well, in the 30s. I mean, it wasn't, I don't think it wasn't terrible. It was very happy sort of childhood. Everybody was the same.
Yeah.
And everybody worked together. You didn't have luxuries.
No.
You didn't have pocket money or... And it would be one Sunday school trip a year to Porthcawl. That was the event, you know.
Yeah.
And used to go to Bridgend once a year before Christmas. That was a fantastic event. That sort of thing, but it didn't matter, you know. Your life was up there.
And what was life up there then? Chapels?
Yeah, lots of things happened in chapels. There'd be meetings, children's meetings. In the week, you know, there wasn't anything else. And there were the Workman's Hall, pictures, cinema. And that was as cheap as they could make it. The posh seats upstairs in the gallery were a shilling. I can remember, as I say, the first bit of colour. It came in the middle of a Shirley Temple film. It was, ah!
In the middle of a show?
Yeah, only a little bit. Used to have things called penny readings in the chapel. A sort of do it yourself entertainment. Oh, and Salvation Army. I mean, we weren't poor in that sense. Some were, you know, we weren't hungry. We just didn't have any special luxuries. The Salvation Army used to do magic lantern shows, and it would it'd say around the schools, you know, somebody would come and announce that tonight there's a magic lantern show in the Salvation Army. Pea soup, bring your own cup. We all used to turn up. And all the lanterns, it always seemed to be about tea growing in Ceylon, I can remember.
In history, we're taught that South Wales was the worst affected by the Depression.
Yes, I suppose so, but it's such a strong community that
Affected in what way? What were you told in school?
Oh, that because the coal industry was so heavily relied on in areas of South Wales that when it sort of was deprived, I guess it was.
Well, there was nothing else. And there were some horrible coal owners, mind, the Corey brothers, you know. But it wasn't then. But as far as the actual living in it was concerned, the kids, I can't say that we were desperately poor. You had something to eat, you didn't.
Well, I can use that in my history.
I mean, you didn't buy, you didn't have chocolates and sweets, and so you didn't have pocket money. There were times when I had half an egg. You know, but you weren't malnutritioned or anything, you know. Everybody managed, you know, and everybody.
Were there strikes in the 1930s then? Was that the cause of the...
26 strike was, I can remember them talking about it when I was a bit older.
What do you remember them saying about that?
See, my father always said that a lot of people who were well off before were ruined because there was a baker he used to talk about, and they used to get, you know, in the strike they'd give people things for nothing, and they were ruined themselves, you know, remember that. And hunger marches. I can certainly remember walking up the road and there'd be in the square or in Antamile, lots of men sitting in rows on the wall, just, you know, talking.
How did families manage when all the coal mining jobs went? Did they ever go completely?
In the straight, well, the Miners' Federation, which was like the union, helped as much as they could. And they'd have lots of people, you know, had concerts in places, and Russia said, you know, in those days, there was a fund, I can remember it being announced that so much money had come from Russia. But you didn't have so many things. You managed. My grandfather kept, most people did, some bantams at the top of the garden, and a lot of people kept pigs on the mountain when they were all shared, you know, everybody.
Didn't sound as if you had much.
We didn't have many things. I mean, by the time, by the time Colin and Glenys and Noreen were, it was getting better then, because in the 4 or 5 years before the war, this job started coming back.
So,
But I certainly didn't have pocket money, because what would you spend it on?
Yeah, what do you mean by things then? What sort of, was it that you didn't have anything, or that nothing was there?
Not a lot of toys,
Yeah.
but simple things. For your entertainment, you went out a lot because there weren't cars. You played outside, and there'd be seasons like whip and top season, and hopscotch season. And suddenly, everybody knew today was start of hopscotch season, and all the things like that, whips and tops. The men would make them, you know. A lot of the toys were handmade, and you played outside on the street. hopscotch in the middle of the road.
Where did the Coreys, you mentioned the Corey brother, where did they live then?
The Coreys. Cardiff in London, I think. In
Do you know Cadogan Street?
eh?
Cadogan Street?
Cadogan.
When you left in 1942, 43, describe the house and how many people were living in it.
Oh, I can't believe. There was a mother and father, 6 children, and my grandfather, my mother's father, and Albert, who was sort of, he came to live with us. And there were 3 bedrooms, and one was my grandfather's. He had to have his own room. And there were 3 beds in the big room. So, downstairs there was the kitchen, and not a proper bathroom. There was sort of a bath in the kitchen, an outside toilet, and a middle room and a front room. And for a long time, the front room was where Philip was, because Philip was a premature baby. So the first couple of couple of months, he was wrapped up in cotton wool in a cot in the front room. So it was him and the piano. We managed the piano, you see. A long time I started to learn the piano by using next door's, Mrs. Morris's piano. Then I went down somewhere else. And eventually we bought a piano from the Co-op in Cardiff. Remember? Well, these are coming back now. I hadn't thought of this for years. My father was on the Co-op committee, the Cooperative Society. They, Nantamara Cooperative Society. It was a committee which ran it. So, and in Cardiff, in St Mary Street, there was this huge building which was the cooperative furniture and big store. So you could have a letter, like my father did because he's on the committee, and we went to Cardiff, and you could have a piano, choose a piano on long term, so much a week, which we did. But, horrible, if it was really bad, a lot of firms gave you, not discount, but allowed you to credit, and you pay when you could. So nobody actually starved. But it was different.
What was the story you were saying about your father coming back from shift in the bath, and you can remember?
Oh, yeah, before the pithead bars were open. Yeah, well, they'd come all black, covered in coal dust, like you see them in old films. And then there was a tin bath in front of the fire in the living room, and he'd have a bath in that. So, sitting in it. So, and I can remember, I used to love doing it too, because he'd wash all over. And then I'd wash it back. It was with a flannel and soap, and wash it back. And I used to do patterns on his back. So that was, it's terribly hard for the women. But the pit clothes, you'd take them off, outside, and shake out all the black pats. Cockroaches. Everybody had black pats, we used to call them. Because they'd have to be, traps and all sorts of things, but all houses had black pats, because they'd come in the pit clothes. Sounds awful, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It wasn't.
It wasn't awful at the time, was it?
At the time, it was just a normal childhood. I used to have a lot of fun. As I say, there was a lot of playing in groups and gangs to get nice, you know. You wouldn't sit in with your own toys. You'd go out and make your own entertainment and games. And
But you know, lots of people like yourselves, you have big families. That suggests that the infant mortality rate wasn't that high.
no, it wasn't.
No.
In fact, it was quite, in a funny way, it was quite a healthy sort of life. You see, nearly everybody grew some sort of vegetables. Potatoes, leeks, they all had kind of allotments, even if it's just a patch on the edge of the cool tip. So you had, you know, quite a healthy diet, really.
So in terms of what you've been told in the 30s about Welsh people in coal mining areas suffering most during the depression of the 30s, have you been told in what terms then? Because there wasn't child mortality rates, it wasn't malnutrition as such.
One of the things was that women were affected very badly because the men would give the money to the women so they could pay.
Opposite where we lived in Cadogan Street, there was Mr. James. He was a local chemist, pharmacist, quite well off. And he had 3 children. There was Theophilus, who was older than me, and there was Guerville and Elmer. And 2 girls, I was quite friendly with them. But they were well off. They had a tuppenny bar of Cadbury's chocolate, I can remember, and in the class. You know, the sort of purple thing. And they ate it all between them. And all the class was talking about this. Gossip of the day. Oh, equivalent, they ate all that chocolate. They had a chocolate bar all by themselves.
So I'm still trying to work out this. So if it wasn't in terms of, you know, you think of Kenya now, when they say Kenya is quite tough, life's quite tough, then it is about nutrition, they're starving. They go out every morning to try and feed the family by night and feed everybody in the family, like you said, when very often parents go without a meal. So is it in terms, you know, what was I would break my heart if I had 5, 6 kids, boys especially. I think, anyway, even back then, I think I would be aware enough to break my heart if the only option for them was to go underground. Because I would be suffering with silicosis, I'd be suffering, I'd be aches and pain. I would want them to have a better opportunities. Maybe those opportunities weren't available, were they?
Not always, but certainly if they were taken advantage of. And by the time Colin was old, there was no way his generation would go in. A lot of them did go underground, but by then it was a good job, or goodish. But I mean, they weren't all good people. There were some horrors as well.
Yeah.
But everybody, well, you still see it a bit in places like in some of the valleys. There's still a community. Everybody. I mean, if anything went wrong with any, in a house, or somebody was ill, or one of them died or something, everybody went. Everybody was mucked in and helped. Just, and you didn't feel deprived because everybody else was the same.
That's what I don't understand. So in our history lessons, the teacher would say people were affected bad by the depression, but now I don't understand.
No, it's
because there wasn't homelessness, there wasn't malnutrition.
No, well, they could have been, but not
I think-
not like
no,
the
not
Eastern, not like Asia.
So, yeah, so when they say affected by,
Affected by, well, you would say affected because they didn't have things.
but back then it would have been normal. So did it really feel like it was a depression? Like a,
Not when you were a
No.
child, because, well, they say what you don't have, you don't miss. But certainly, you didn't have toys. You had, the library was there. I mean, the workmen's halls were fantastic institutions. They had billiards for the men and dominoes and the library, and you could go down, and that's where you got your reading from. And that's where the men went to read their papers. But, so, I mean, most kids these days have got toys, haven't they? Well, they had toys. They had homemade little dolls, rag dolls, and sort of wooden boxes and made into trucks, and people made things themselves.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
It's different. It's
Because as you said, what you haven't got, you don't miss.
No.
That doesn't actually make you affluent, does it? You can be people with a certain nature and certain social community that can be happy in a shoebox.
oh yeah,
But it still doesn't mean they have much, but happiness is probably worth more than anything else.
Yes, yes.
Realistically,
Yeah.
they're pretty poor.
I mean, when you think clothes, you didn't have many clothes. You had clothes when you would wash them quickly and you'd be clean, and you might have one best sort of thing that you kept for high days and holidays, and you made clothes last, and hand-me-downs, things were altered, and you'd have but I think when you think of toys, I think is the most obvious thing. It's so different. I mean, you would feel deprived, wouldn't you, if you didn't have anything to play with? Would you?
yeah, that's what I don't understand now. How they can say people were affected by it, but if a lot of people lived like that, how can they put that as bad? If everyone,
Pretty poor.
yeah, but if everyone,
Mm.
well, a lot of people were living like that, that was normal.
It was not. Describe. Can you tell us what your father, a typical shift? So, what sort of hours and what pay was that
Well-
family sustained on then?
As far as pay goes, when I went to London, my pay was, because I had the London allowance, and it was £2 9 shillings. And my father's wage was about 10 shillings more. So that was the lever,
But is that
eh?
a week?
A week.
So
So
you-
30 shillings.
So how much was your father on a week?
He'd have earned about £2. Yeah, without the London allowance, about £2, 10 shillings. And that was 94, that was, when it was good.
And how many shifts a week did he do? What was his work? What was his week like?
Oh, well, it was 6 days sometimes. And he was always on days, so he'd start at about 5 o'clock. And we didn't live all that far from the pits. He would walk the back way over the tip. And he'd be back about 3, 4 o'clock. And my grandfather worked traffic shift, they called it. And that was starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and coming home about 10 o'clock at night.
days a week.
So that meant 2 lots of pit clothes and 2 lots of baths. But the bath, you see, you'd have a tin bath and pour water in for a coal fire. That's one thing, that you were always warm. I can remember sort of being amazed, not many years ago, there was a preacher used to know from Puth called Paul Flo. He was brought up in the docks in Cardiff. Younger than me, so, you know, wasn't the Depression time. But he said once that the main thing he can remember when he was a child, because they weren't well off, they were quite poor, was trying to get enough thing to keep warm, trying to get enough fire. And I said, we all looked at each other in chapel. You know, we used to coal, at least you had coal, you always had a big fire, which you did all your cooking on and your eating.
So back then, you wouldn't have considered that as a household you were poor, or
Not really, no.
but looking back now, would you?
Looking back now, you'd start, well, even now I think, well,
Yeah.
so what, you know? You didn't have, if you wanted to read a book, you'd get one from the library, or talk, play outside.
Was there anything, looking back, was there anything that you didn't have that you thought, well,
But I wish I had.
or even that you needed?
I don't think so. I mean, it would have been nice to have, say, a new coat,
Yeah.
or some sort of tuppenny bar chocolate.
Was there anything you thought?
But nothing that I felt was life-threatening not to have, that I can think of.
So you think that you had everything that you needed?
Yeah.
So if your teacher then produces statistics to show child mortality rates were high and disease was high, you know, it might not be that high when our family were. When you looked around your community, were
Oh,
there
yeah,
poor,
there was-
poor.
There was a lot of disease, even in our family. It was TB, because when my uncle died quite early, there were families which were life expectancy. You didn't expect them all to. We were lucky, we were exceptional. But most families had someone who didn't make it very old. But there were some families comparatively well off, you see, if they didn't have children or. But it just, main thing is, I think, was entertainment. You made your own. I think that was the main thing. And things like telephones when, you know, to reach 17 and never really used a telephone. That didn't seem possible when I thought about it. It was true. The other thing, see, we are miners always had free medical because they had a fund. So we start, you know, that's where the NHS started really, a long time before Niall and Bevan. Well, when in his youth, because they used to pay a penny a week from their wages, all the miners, into the medical fund. And this would fund the doctor, so all treatment was free. Whereas some places you read about that they couldn't afford to see the doctor, could they? Some in cities.
So did your dad ever lose his job? Was it
No,
mine?
no,
Mines never shut?
No. He, well, apart from the strike,
Yeah.
But they went on short time for ages. That was worse, really, than because you didn't have any benefits or anything. But you could work 3 days and get paid for 3 days. So that went for a couple of years.
It's sort of suggested in our history lessons that
Yeah.
all coal industry, everything shut down, all the mines shut down. But
Not really, no.
because when they say that the coal industry had sort of fallen, they make it sound like all the people that used to work in the mines had lost their jobs.
Yeah, well, it happened. That was, the recent closure.
It happened in the 80s.
In the 80s, that was different then, when they actually closed the
No,
mines.
but our teacher is saying like suggesting that everyone had lost their jobs from.
In the 30s now.
In the not during the
Well, not everyone, but
no, but in the Depression they didn't. There was always some people working, even in Depression. No, it wasn't until Thatcher time that they actually stopped. But even then, they had little mines all over the place, didn't they? Don't hear any left now, are there? Drifts and what's his name? That Irish bloke.
Tyrone.
Tyrone. Yeah. Forgotten his name. But his pit is closed now, but they had, a few like that. See, there are a lot of very good mine owners as well. David Davis, Llandinam. He was quite a good owner. He did well with his workers.
so before.
Hello.
Do you remember before and after? It was
Yes,
sort
I've
of
seen
the.
it.
Do you remember before and after the Depression? Or
I
was-
can't remember before, not really.
Okay.
But
I can remember
You pick higher?
it gradually.
yeah. Do you have any
Yes.
idea if
I'll be on now.
your dad's wages
Mm.
dropped? Did they drop dramatically? or-
Yes, well, when on the short time and everything like that, you were conscious that,
Yes, that's it.
you didn't get
Yeah.
quite as nice food perhaps as you did before. You didn't starve. But then gradually, in the 30s, before the war, things started to get better, you see, because they needed the coal then, didn't they? And I can remember when the beginning of the arsenal, in Bridgend, the arsenal, where they made all the bombs and things. That was, a lot of people went to work there. And the conditions were so much better.
Where was that then? Where was that building then?
Where the trading estate is now.
This was
That was all arsenal. Up here, where the Brackler is,
Yeah.
that was part of it. There's big tunnels underneath there. They must be still there. They used to have trains going, carting this stuff away, They made shells and bombs in a huge place. So they must be still there somewhere.
Must be. Wow, fascinating.
There's underground centre was up there too. That must be still there. When they had these, but in the Cold War, when there was nuclear fear, they had government facilities.
Oh,
Remember?
building a bunkers. isn't it?
Bunkers underneath
Just in case
for the
there was-
officials.
Yeah, if the officials.
Well, that's
were
still up
living.
there. I mean, unless they filled it all in, but it's still up there somewhere. But, then, during the war then, when they really needed the coal, and straight after when they needed a lot, miners were sort of, cream. they were thought a lot of then.
Do you remember Uncle? Was it Uncle Griff? Was it Uncle?
Yeah.
We got found a few pictures of him. He was captain of the sports.
Yes, he was cricket, he was offered a place in Glamorgan. He was the one who had TB, so he died. He was 30. I can remember that he was in Sully. We went to visit him. Sully Hospital was a big TB hospital. He was the youngest of the family. My father's mother died when he was born, you see, so when my father was 11. So, oh, we go for tell you history. Because I didn't know my grandmother, but I didn't know her either, but for a few years the great-grandmother brought up the children with Dee, and then one of them, my aunt's father's oldest sister, took over, and she was young, she brought them all up.
Yeah, that's another thing we've learnt about in history is that sport, amateur sport, being a big part of people's entertainment, cricket and rugby.
It's shown you that, you know, the Nantumar rugby team with all the brothers in it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I've seen
Yeah, I give you that.
We saw a few photos when Griff captain of the football, I think the cricket.
Yeah, cricket, yeah.
I didn't realise he was...
Griff was in the football, he was a little boy, sitting in the front. But he was very,
So he died of TB in his 30s?
yeah.
Did you used to do any sport?
Yes, he was very active sport, yeah. But
Did you used to do any sport?
me? Not really.
Did girls in general do a lot of sport?
No, not organised sport, no. I mean, we were always active, playing outside, you know. We'd do athletics with skipping ropes across the road and high jumps and lots of scrambling up mountains and sliding down on pieces of cardboard.
Was there at any point, even when you went to London, where it seemed like women were allowed to get as involved as men in different things like sport?
In a way, yes. I mean, I can't ever remember women's football. We used to play table tennis and hockey, netball, but
Where was it? In London? Or?
yeah.
As a sort of hobby, just spare time. For example, if you played table tennis with...
Oh, we used to have little teams in different departments of Admiralty and the National Physical Laboratory. And there'd be a league, county leagues, and we'd go every week, you know. To all sorts of funny little church halls and things. Yeah, play table.
What was your favourite sport? Or when you were
I don't know, really. Walking, I think.
Mammy told me that you were quite good at table tennis.
Yeah, I was at one time. I can't now. But that was, like the sports, most places had sports clubs like the Admiralty, and well, they still do, don't they? And most firms have got sports clubs. That was going. There used to be a little shed at the top of Cadogan Street, which was Markham, what was his name? He was a boxer. And he got his flyweight, I think he was Welsh champion at one time. He used to train up there. Markham. Can't remember his first surname.
You used to train in the shed at the end, right at the end of Cadogan Street?
Yeah.
Like the garage?
At the end of Cadogan Street, they used to, I don't know if it used to be a coal tip.
Right. And
And there was a field at the bottom. And there was a shed, it was Markham's.
How big was the shed?
I don't know, I suppose, I don't think he had a trainer. He just had to go.
What would he do? Would he have a punching bag or? can't-
Weights and punch
Well,
bag maybe,
yeah,
and
it's
stick rope.
Yeah, people used to have dumbbells, was it? But he wouldn't have many facilities.
No, no.
But he got there.
Was boxing big back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember when Tommy Farr, remember Tommy Farr, didn't he win or something? And by that time, a lot of people had radios then, we didn't before, I can remember. I think about 1934, 35, we had radio. And I can remember that Tommy Farr, about 6 men would come down to listen, all sitting in our kitchen, listening to Tommy Farr.
Well, I think give me a bit of go, do we?
I'm sorry I haven't been much help. I'm so
It's been
disjointed.
fascinating. Absolutely
Yeah.
fascinating.
I start thinking now, I think of all sorts of things.
No, it's been fascinating.
I'm amazed you can remember so much. I don't think I'd be able to remember in detail. It's amazing.
You will, as you get older, you tend to remember
Really?
more.
I can imagine.
It
some-
used to take
yeah.
9 hours by train from Paddington to Bridgend. That any help?
9 hours. Oh yeah, round Gloucester as well, was it?
No, but it was, cold trains. It was slow anyway, and there used to be air raids on the way.
Wow.
I often used to come home by night because because I didn't have much leave. So
When did you learn to drive?
not till I was in back here.
At what age was that?
Oh, too old. Must have been 35. He used to. You must go. Don't let me keep you. He used to live in Admiralty Hostel. When I first went to London, we were in digs, and I had about 5 different places to live in the first year. And by that time, the American army had come to Teddington, to Bushy Park, and they took all the accommodation. So it was desperate. People from work, wandering around with their suitcases because they only had a little bit of possessions, and there's nowhere to live. So they opened the Admiralty Hostel then in Wimbledon, which was, we all went there. So it was about 50 of us in this great big house. There were, I think there were 5 girls and all the rest men, all different sort, old, young. So that was one thing.
Can I ask you, you never married?
No.
But there must have
I
been a
didn't want
man
to-
sometime ready with a ring.
Relationships. That's not a new thing.
No.
I should have done been easier, perhaps.
Mammy told me that you went to dinner with Buster Crabbe. Is that true?
Oh, Buster Crabbe, yeah. He's mad, he was. This was after the war. I mean, the 3 of them got killed, so he was... he left on his own. A couple of really good-looking young men, and it was a dangerous job. But Buster Crabbe, he was at the loose end, you see, when they'd finished putting bombs on German submarines. So, do you know that there's an island in the Firth of Forth, Ailsa Craig? Have a look it up on a map. And Buster Crabbe decided that the Spanish Armada, one of the ships had gone that way, laden with gold, and sunk. And all the gold was underneath Ailsa Craig. He was convinced. So he came around he wanted, he was going to dig it up, not dig it all up, but he could, trying to find a way to excavate. So to do this, he had to, this is numerical analysis now, he wanted to find out how deep it was and what shape the island was underneath. So I can't remember how we did it, but I was working away. It was a mad scheme anyway, he was never going to be able to do it. But he had all these drawings, and I'd worked out the figures and how deep the rock was, and so he's going to dig under Ailsa Craig for this gold.
Did you believe in that any time? No.
But there's a little period after the war when everybody's at a loose end, you see. Things, people like him. Yes. But he was said to have been a spy and got killed. It wasn't, it was an accident. He wasn't a spy.
How did you get into the position of going to dinner with him?
Oh, well, he was working around, he was working in Teddington, in the office.
Okay.
I think it was just that been working away at these figures for him. So we decided to go and have dinner. Yeah, he was mad, he was. Quite a lot of them were mad.
Yeah.
Which side is that? That one on?
I think it's that side.
That's the Huskies, that side.
Oh. What's this side?
Nice little Cocker Spaniels.
Oh.
2 nice little dogs. You never see those.
We better go then, so we've got to call in the Tesco for milk and oil.
What you got lots to do? What are you doing tonight?
Kai's back.
Kylie's home. Alison's picked him. Al ran just now. He's full of flu, he is. That's why he wants to come
Oh
home.
no.
Full of flu, so she's taken him home, put him to bed, and give him a lemon sip.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why she didn't call in, she said. She'd say hello.
Oh.
So that's where he's gone. Too much high life in the last 2 weeks, I think.
Yes, and not
Not enough sleep.
this is when you get everything, because you're meeting all different people
Yeah.
all the time. Oh dear. I'll go through it. Did you see Ellen on the telly?
Yes, briefly, yeah.
She came over quite well, didn't she?
did.
I was quite impressed.
I heard her speaking on Radio Cymru 2-3
No, I
weeks
didn't
ago.
hear that, yeah.
I didn't recognise it. She spoke so well and so authoritative and interesting and intelligent.
Yeah.
Not that I don't doubt she's intelligent, she's just... I had to listen to make sure which one of the two was Ellen.
Oh.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
spoke
good.
brilliantly. Very mature young lady. Fantastic.
Yeah,
really.
she's, gosh, when you think what could have happened, really worried when I was anyway. A few sleepless nights when she was, used to see her quite often, you see, when she was with, what's her name? Abby, because they lived up there and used to come down this way. Feeling quite helpless, couldn't do anything.
No, I miss Anna every day.
Mm. Yeah. Tend to forget how well Keith has coped. How's Poppy?
Yeah, good.
Barley is fine.
He's like treated like a
Yeah.
Oh yes.
regency.
Yeah. Barley used to come here when Anna first had him, you see. It was before she went really off. And so when Keith brings him down occasionally, Barney comes straight in like he used to do. He sits there,
Does he?
straight there. He knows where he's going.
Intelligent dog, isn't he? He's a quite intelligent dog.
Yeah. I was there one last week, took his shirts up, and then I was going out, and Keith came back with Barry, so Barry came in, looked, he said hello to me, because he always does. And then he had a long walk, apparently, so Keith was, he sat down and talked for about 5 minutes, and Barry had gone out the lawn. He was sitting right at the end of the lawn, holding his ball, because he expected Keith was supposed to go out to play. So he was all right like a few minutes, and then he barked. He said, I looked out, and it was exactly as he was saying, "What are you doing? Come on, I'm waiting for you. Come quick."
Yeah, he's very... He seems almost human.
He is. He really is.
Well, when Grandpa takes Ellen and when Grandpa takes Becca and her friend to guides, Grandpa obviously drives most of the time. Barney's in the passenger seat, and the girls are up in the boot.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Like Thomas is always in the front seat.
Oh, with Philip and Rhiannon?
Yeah.
Travels in the front, is he?
Yeah. So he's like Barley.
Happy days.
That's Thomas's work there.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's still good, isn't it?
Yeah. Very good.
Right.
Where's that pit then? Where's that?
That's the Wyndham. It used to be.
Wyndham.
Yes. The ocean is up there.
The ocean was just down from Cadogan Street.
Yes,
right?
it just at the top. That's the way we used to go that way to school.
Great drawing.
We weren't supposed to, but we did.
Yeah.
This is sort of artist license, mind. The tops are not quite like that. That's the brush.